If you can find your seats and come up to the front. For those of you that are in the back, I know it's easy to be in the back, but let's come to the front so we can engage and we can have those questions later on. How's everybody this morning? Bright and early. Did everybody make their beds today? Okay, that's great. So why don't we pray before we get started? Lord, we come before you and we just thank you so much for bringing us here this early morning. And we're just ready, Lord, to just receive from you through Dr. Garment. We just pray that you bless this time and we lift it up to you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. So before we get started, we want to share a quick video with you. And so if you can cue the video, I hope this video blesses you.
It is indeed a privilege to join our General Overseer Dr. Tim Hill and the Executive Committee, Pray Church of God. I'm Steve Smith from the New York State Church of God, Administrative Bishop here, and my wife Karen, she will be reading for us from Psalm 67.
God be merciful unto us and bless us, and cause his face to shine upon us, that thy way may be known upon earth, thy saving health among all nations. Let the people praise thee, O God, let the people praise thee. O let the nations be glad and sing for joy. For thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon earth. Let the people praise thee, O God, let the people praise thee. Then shall the earth yield her increase, and God, even our own God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and the ends of the earth shall fear him.
Yes, we want to pray today for the fire of God to be released in the earth and for the nations of the world. Moses had lost passion and purpose. He had been in the wilderness for over 40 years. But one day, the fire of God showed up. He encountered the fire. He heard the voice of God from the fire. And God gave him directive to go and to speak to Pharaoh and thus command, let my people go. We need the fire of God to again move in our churches, in our lives, in our community. It was the fire of God upon Mount Carmel that brought an entire nation to God. The fire of God fell. They saw the glory and the power of God, and they declared, the Lord, he is God. You know, one significant thing about the tabernacle, the fire in the tabernacle was not lit by man. It came from God. And God had one condition: don't let the fire go out. We must preserve the fire of Pentecost, and we must in this season release that fire in our communities, in our cities, and upon our nations. During the COVID in November, my car was due for service, and the car dealer sent someone to pick the car up. I'm walking out to do this transaction and was compelled to bring a devotion book out for this person who came to get the car. As I walked out, before I could even say a word, this young lady looked at me and she said, I want Jesus. I brought her in the office, explained to her what it is to give your heart to the Lord. Then I led her in a prayer of renouncing her past. My staff, our youth director, Brian Lee, and someone else joined as we prayed for this lady. As we prayed for her, the fire of the Lord fell upon her. She fell to the floor and started crying out for God's mercy. We prayed her through and saw God delivered her. And here is what she called back to tell us. She was on drugs. She was suicidal. But God that day delivered her. As we prayed, she shouted out, there is fire in my belly. Oh, that the fire of God would be released in the earth again, and that we will see the glory of the Lord. Father, we call upon you today. Lord, be merciful to us and bless us, and cause your face to shine upon us, that your ways might be known in all the earth, your saving strength among the nations. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the nations in righteousness and govern all the people upon the earth. We pray today for a move of God. We pray for an awakening. We pray that the power of the Holy Spirit will cover the earth like the waters cover the sea. Let the fire of God be released. We release the fire of God in the nations. We release the fire of God in our cities and in our communities. Your kingdom come and your will be done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, that's a little bit better. Good morning to those of you that are online with us on Zoom. Many more will be coming in and taking their place. Consider yourself officially chimed in. And we're ready to begin this morning. Lord willing, we've got a long way to go between now and 3 o'clock. And we've got a lot of good stuff to cover. So I'm exceptionally glad that you are here and that you've navigated the traffic. It is a little bit better on Saturday mornings, isn't it? Wow, New York. I don't know how y'all do it. But you figure it out. You'll find a way. A couple things I just wanted to show you. This is one of the best tools that you'll ever have. And I told you last night, we talked about time management. It's really not time management, it's self-management. You can't manage time, because time just keeps going the same, right? But you can't manage yourself. And we talked about personal accountability. And this really is all about, especially today, trying to really pour into you as much as I can pour into you. To say, if you'll follow this stuff, this will help you. And we'll get great reports. But this is one of my favorite tools of all time. And I've got just bunches of these in the drawer where I've thrown them in after I've used them. But it's just a little, memo book, spiral book. You can pick these up for 20, 30 cents at Walmart, someplace like that. But I take notes in it. Because sometimes if you don't catch an idea when it comes, it's gone. Have you figured that out? And sometimes in the middle of the night, I keep something close to me. And there are times when I catch an idea at night or something comes into my mind at night out of the blue. And I'm curious about it because I've been thinking about it. I'll grab my phone and I'll Google it right there in the middle of the night. Because I know that I'll probably not remember it again. Now, it's not everything, but there's some things that just come into my mind and say, where in the world did that come from? But you have to have something that helps you with those ideas. So keep that with you. But the most important thing is a to-do list. And every night before I go to bed, that's one of the things I do. I look at what I've accomplished that day. What do I need to carry over that I didn't get accomplished? And a lot of times it's not that I didn't have the time to do it or didn't try to do it. Sometimes it's not dependent upon me. It's like I've got here right now, conversation with. And there's 2 items on here that I was waiting for someone to respond to me. And they didn't respond to me. And sometimes what you have to do is you have to manage up. Say manage up. In other words, you can't wait. And we talked about how frustrating it is last night when you can't count on someone. Remember, personal accountability is the I can count on you factor. Remember that? Yeah. But there's some people you can't count on. And you're expecting information, you're expecting them to do a certain thing, and they don't do it. And there's a thin line between managing that situation and being pushy and aggressive and just being, too out there to push. But there's ways to do that, to actually text someone, to email someone, and just to say to them, don't want to push, but hey, are you still interested? Do you want to do this? Do we want to have this conversation? And a lot of times they're just busy and they're not managing their time appropriately, or your conversation is not at the top of their list, whatever the case may be. But just that little nudge can get that thing done so that you can move that project along. Is this making sense to you? And these are little things that can really help life. But ladies and gentlemen, and my wife was doing this right out of college. She's had these things, these little binders like this, these little memo books forever. And she can go back and look at those and see what she did right out of college as a young single girl before we even got married. But if you'll follow this and use it, you don't have to use this. There's no magic to this. It can be whatever. It can just be a piece of notebook paper or a piece of printing paper that you just turn sideways and cut up, whatever you want to do. But you use some device. I call it an implementation device. Say that. Yeah, and if you read Deep Work or Atomic Habits, that's where I got that from. He called it an implementation device. The other implementation device that I have, and I've shared this with you, I think, is a calendar. A calendar like this. I have one on my desk in my office, and I have one on my dresser in the bedroom so that I can see it all the time. It's not the most decorative thing in the world, but it works. And it just has these big squares for each day. And I write things in there. I write my workout, what my time was, how far I ran or walked, and my weight. Because if you can measure it, you can control it. Did you know that? Yeah. And if you keep it up there. One of the great things about something like this is I'll have my labs on there. I'll write in, I keep a marker and a highlighter and a pen there so that I can put down the things that I know is coming up. So at any time I can look at my month and I can kind of see what my world looks like and what's going on. And some things you just have to say no to, ladies and gentlemen. Saying no to certain things is a yes for much greater things. And so you can only do certain things. So sometimes you just have to make sure you understand what your priorities are. But keep this and then keep that calendar. And once you accomplish that day and you got the things done, then you just mark that off. And here's the important part of that. There's something about being able to visually look down and see that you accomplished that. Now, when I put an X through that day, all that simply means is that I accomplished what I want to accomplish in that day. And if I don't put an X on it. So I can look and see what that does. It starts getting you mentally prepared to say what you want to look back on in 30 days or 32 days, 31 days, whatever it is you want to look back at a calendar that has full of X's, right? Because then you think, wow, man, this really works. And it does. It's just something to help you get disciplined. So a calendar, you remember Bob Pace? Bob Pace used to be People for Care and Learning, and years ago, Men and Women of Action. He was a lay person that decided that he was a leader, for heaven's sakes. And he started Men and Women of Action, disaster relief program in the Church of God. And then he started People for Care and Learning, which worked in Southeast Asia. And he tapped me to become the director when he got sick. Bob's gone on to be with the Lord. But I really picked this up from Bob Pace before I ever read it in Atomic Habits with James Clear. He carried one of these all the time. And he called it the Bob Pace PDA. Personal, PD? Personal Development Advice or Personal Development, whatever. What's a PDA? They used to call them PDAs. Come on, what was it? Anybody remember? Anyhow, it's a personal device for getting things done. But use this. Carry it with you. I have it either in my backpack and the reason why I like this size, I can put it in a pocket. When I have a pocket right here, it goes right here so I can get to it easy. So I'm telling you, please, it'll revolutionize your life when it comes to personal accountability and to getting things done. All right. Some of you have been getting on to me because you said I didn't show you pictures. So I wanted to show you a few pictures. This is my daughter Whitney and her husband Nathan that lived in Queens for 9 years and were on off-Broadway. They never made it actually to Broadway, but they were on off-Broadway. You know, here in New Jersey and this surrounding area, you guys have all kinds of theaters where these people do work that are not on Broadway, but they're trying to get on Broadway. They lived here 9 years and never one time missed a paycheck. They didn't have to work in a restaurant or any other job, so they actually made a living acting, singing, and dancing. And they created their own business teaching people who moved to New York City that wanted to be in the performing arts how to hack New York City. What do you do when you come to New York City and you're an actor but you don't know the ropes? So they had a 6 to 8 week course that they would teach people how to navigate the subways, you know, how to navigate auditions and so on. And they made a pretty good living doing that and acting. So you see them now. They tried out and auditioned for Disney, and they're in Orlando now, been, I guess, 4 years or so, 5 years. And you see them here in some of their gadgets, and Whitney's with her boss up in the top left-hand corner there, which is Mickey. How many of you like to have Mickey as a boss? That's pretty cool, right? So you see them there. This is Avonlea. This is my little granddaughter, who's now, I think, 3 weeks old. And tonight, I get to jump on an airplane and go to Orlando, where I'm going to be with the family, and my other kids are all driving down. It's fall break for school next week. Is it the same up here? Y'all get fall break? Okay. We're already getting fall break in Tennessee, so they all are going to drive down to Orlando and be with us. And this is little Avonlea. And she's just kind of stole everybody's hearts, you know, as you can imagine. This is my 3-year-old grandson. This is Grayson. And he has stolen my wife's heart. That's the reason why you don't ever see her. She's with Grayson. And nobody can pick him up from daycare but Nene. And that's my wife. His daddy can't pick him up from daycare. He says, I'll see you this afternoon, son. He says, no, Nene. And you know what that makes Shirley feel like, right? I said, when you coming home? She said, probably, maybe never. Not as long as Grayson's acting this way. So there they are. There's Whitney and Nathan and Avonlea. This is Whitney had just come home from the hospital. Not bad for just coming home from the hospital, huh? She's a sweet girl. She sang with Voices of Lee for a year. She was the high soprano with Danny Murray and the Voices of Lee, which is the premier singing and promoting group at Lee University. And then decided to go to Belmont University in Nashville for theater and performing arts. And I'm glad she did because she met Nathan. And Nathan's an incredible singer, dancer, actor himself. But he got laid off during COVID. They both got laid off, but when they came back, when everything opened back up, she got rehired, he didn't. And so it's kind of broke his heart. But he started doing what I'm telling you to do. During COVID, he started retooling himself, reinventing himself. So he went to real estate school, got his real estate license, and in his first 4 months, he sold 4 homes. I mean, he's burning it up. And he decided that he was pretty good at building and fixing things. So now he's got his own fixer-upper business that he does, and he calls it Amazing Gray Designs. Gray for Grayson, which is his son, but it's kind of a play on Amazing Grace. So you get that Amazing Gray Designs. So he'll come in and design a renovation for your bathroom, for your kitchen, for your bedroom, and him and Whitney do all that. And they also, listen, they're making big money. They stay busy all the time when they can do this. Organizing closets and garages. People's closets and garages are disasters. And they will pay somebody to come in. If you don't think I need it, throw it away. Take it away. But fix my closet, and I wish you could see. You could go on to Amazing Gray Designs, I think on Instagram. You can kind of look at that and you can see some of what he's done and what they do. And it's amazing, the before and after pictures with what they do. But see, these are ideas that people get, ladies and gentlemen, when things start falling apart. You gotta, that's personal accountability, isn't it? That's self-starting. That's self-management. In other words, I'm not a victim here. I can recreate myself and do something. And who knows, it might just work. Once again, save the date. March 28, 29, Monday and Tuesday, Cleveland, Tennessee. Todd Bolsinger is coming down, and he is going to be my keynote speaker, along with Dr. Tim Hill, who will open up the conference. I want some of you to be in Cleveland. Write this date down. If you're on my mailing list, then you'll get this probably next week, because that's when I'm going to start sending out the notifications that the conference is going to be held. 170, I think it is, something seats. And once they fill, it's done. So if you're going to come, if you're going to drive down, I'm telling you, I would, if you decide to come, some of you, I would talk to Brian Lee or to the bishop and let them know. Because other people can let them know. And you might be able to get a van. You might be able to get some things to go. Toronto, Canada's coming down. Some of them are flying and going to be there. I got a few from the Caribbean because, listen, Wayne Vernon, pastoring in Toronto, Canada, we're doing Zoom on Monday nights, 8 weeks in a row, Leader Labs 2.0. Last Monday night was our third Monday night from 6 to 9 o'clock, right? And it's our third Monday night, Leader Labs 2.0. We had 159 people on Zoom. And a huge portion of them are from the Caribbean. And it is amazing to see all these people there. Well, some of them have already told me they're coming. They said, as soon as you put it up, we hadn't. And listen, a lot of people are saying this. We haven't been anywhere in a long time. We're ready to go somewhere. And some people say, I've never been to Cleveland, Tennessee. I've never seen Lena University. I've never been able to see headquarters. I've never been able to see the seminary. And I want you to come. Come and be there. But it's going to absolutely be amazing. If I were a pastor, this is the kind, if you're going to be a super leader, this is the kind of thing you need to connect your people to. You get them out of the silo that we live in and expose them to something bigger, something greater, something more. That's how you create vision in your own life and what's possible. You bump into people, you meet people, you see people that you've known, but you didn't know were going to be there. But here's the greatest thing. The kind of people that are going to be at this conference are, because here's who I'm advertising to. I have a little over 5,000 people on my mailing list. So there are people that have been in Leader Labs. They like this kind of stuff. And if I didn't like this guy and think he was all that and more, and of course Dr. Hill, I wouldn't be doing this. And you'll never, never, never get a conference like this for this money. It's $149. Of course, you got to get there. You got to get your own hotel and food. But the conference itself is $149. You go to the website, 175 people is how many the David C. Blair Training Center will seat. Totally renovated at international offices. I want some of you to come. Okay? So it's time for review. We were talking last night about competencies. We got through a couple of them. And all of these competencies that we're talking about have to do with this initiative that we're in of benchmarking jobs and positions throughout the Church of God. And as you take a look and you see there's New York Church of God local pastors, key responsibilities or key performance indicators. I'll get it bigger for you in just a minute so that you can see this. But what happens is when you benchmark, and you have local pastors benchmarked in New York, and now you have district overseer position benchmarked in New York. What does a good job look like? Say it out loud. I always say everybody deserves to know that, right? But very seldom does anybody really give us that description of what it is. When you're putting together a jigsaw puzzle, what's the number one thing, at least I do, most people do, what's the number one thing you need to do, you need to have to put together a jigsaw puzzle? The photo, right? What do? You stand it up on its side and you're able to look at the photo. Without that, most of the time, it's impossible. You just don't know how, where everything's going to go, because you don't know what the good job looks like. You don't know what the photo looks like. You have to begin with the end in mind, but you don't know what the end looks like. Everybody with me? So you've got to have that. And that is really what these benchmarks are all about. being relentless about looking at the picture and keeping it before people. Now, for Brian Lee and for Bishop Smith, and I say this to all of my bishops and all the people that are involved in these benchmarking processes. I leave today and I won't come back until prayer conference. And in prayer conference, by the way, is where we're going to give the graduates your certificates. We decided to do that because we wanted to make it a big deal. How's that? We want to reward you with your certificate in front of the Lord and everybody. So it's going to be a big deal. Everybody for that? Yeah. Instead of just doing it this afternoon and nobody being able to, not very many see it. We want the world to see you get your certificate. Okay? So prayer conference. It's another way to get you to prayer conference too, but we won't talk about that. But I thought it was pretty smart on his behalf. But here's what I tell people. We got to figure out how to keep this stuff in front of our people, or how to get it in front of people, because if they're not aware of it, it doesn't make any difference. Core values. Say that. How many of you have ever walked into a business, or let's say, here's where I see the most of the time, is a hospital, believe it or not. And on the wall of that business, you walk in the front door, or some prominent place, are displayed their core values. They're listed. Sometimes it's in their primary brochure, or they'll say, this is what we believe. Or they'll say, our mission, our vision, our purpose. Say that. Our mission, our vision, our purpose. You see what I'm talking about? We had that displayed in our church in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Out in our foyer, we made sure it was prominent so people could see who we were and what we were about. And so you want this displayed. So how are you going to keep this in front of your people? And it's going to be like the jigsaw puzzle. It's like, how do I keep that out there so that they can continue to see? Well, you got to have that picture out there somewhere. So I don't know how we do this. I don't know if we put this, these statements, especially for a local pastor maybe, because that's the most of it all out there. The key responsibilities need to be prominent. If I were a pastor in New York, maybe it's figure out a way to frame them and give them to every pastor. Maybe it's a way to figure out a way to print them out so that we all know what a good job looks like. That some way they can keep it on their desk, somewhere they can keep it in front of them. But here is the New York Church of God local pastor benchmark. These are the key responsibilities or key performance indicators. And again, Bishop Smith, what we talked about was finding a group of individuals that you trust and pulling them together and talking about this and putting bullet points under each one of these. In other words, so that when a person going through MIP, making sure that these get in front of MIP candidates. Wouldn't that be great when you're coming into the ministry to be given something like this? These are the boxes that you need to check off if you're a pastor. And I'm going to say this. I think these work for just good lay people who just are working in the church and are, because listen, a lot of our lay people see their work in the church as a full-time ministry. Anybody with me on that? I mean, you have to have a job that pays the bills, but man, you're so involved and so committed. Thank God for those kind of people, to the local church, that you'd have to do. I'm going to read it, and each one of you read it after me. You say it after me. Number one, value servant leadership. Value servant leadership. Now, it's not just leadership. And we talked about leadership last night, so we now know what we're talking about. We're not talking about management, right? We're talking about leadership. But what kind of leadership? Servant leadership. Number two, value personal integrity and ministerial ethics. Value personal integrity and ministerial ethics. Now get this. I didn't write these. Subject matter consultants, people from your area that the bishop chose, that representative of all of the New York ministry wrote these, all right? Number three, value a concern for personal pastoral care and development or self-care. In other words, you have to take care of yourself first. You can't help anybody if your own life's a mess, right? And I think pastors and all Christian leaders need to understand that principle. Number four, value a missional outlook. both local and global.
Value a missional outlook, both local and global.
Value intentional training and development for your members.
Value intentional training and development for your members.
Value and be faithful to denominational commitments and policies.
Value and be faithful to denominational commitments and policies.
I think that's pretty good, don't you? That's awesome. So, I would put that somewhere very, very prominent. I would try to figure out, brainstorm a way to where we can get this in front of our people. Now, here's your district overseer or district pastor benchmark. Same thing. Number one, realize your relational role first.
Realize your relational role first.
Now, does that make sense? You're the district overseer. In other words, you're over, the bishop has appointed you to be over several churches in your area. But before, and we talked about this last night, authority, before you use authority, you need to use relationship. You need to pastor your people. You need to be in relationship with your people. So value that relational role first. Number two, be diplomatic in all you do.
Be diplomatic in all you do.
We're going to talk about that, what that means a little bit later on today. Number three, keep pastoral care a priority.
Keep pastoral care a priority.
Encourage, support, equip, and develop your pastors.
Encourage, support, equip, and develop your pastors.
Affirmation and promotion of denominational responsibilities and events. Wow, if we could do this, Bishop, it would be amazing, wouldn't it? And it's not too complicated, right? It's not rocket science. But it does help us to know what a good job looks like. Now, to further that benchmark, what we're talking about, we use these 25 competencies that are generalized to any job that's out there. And but you're not looking to be good in all 25. You're looking to be good or try to learn to be good, great, and then superior in about 7 to 8 of these. And this shows you again the 33, I think, 36. I've updated it. Wow. 36 Church of God competencies benchmarks that we have right now. And from that is where we get the top 9. All right? We correlate that, do all the work, and these are the top 9. So you get that? This is what we're showing you when we say this is what it takes to be a success in the ministry, whether at the local church or whether it be as a pastor or a DO, in a generalized sense for the Church of God. So if you're now listen, ladies and gentlemen, here's the beauty of this, and I hope you get it. This was not me just coming up with some stuff. This is a patented scientific, sociological process that we've gone through. And we have found these things to be valid and reliable. And here's what the science says. That if you can find resources to help you get better in these things, you'll be more successful in your culture, in your position, in what you're trying to achieve. And I have found that to be so true. If you're going to develop, focus on these. So I would take a picture of this. I would take a real good, I would write these down and I would start saying, all right, I want to find resources, videos, TED Talks, books, blogs, podcasts, friends. I want to find any and everything that's going to focus my attention and my learning on this. So that in the Church of God ministry context, I can be the best version of myself. This is pretty good stuff, am I right? If we see it for what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, 8 labs will not do it. This is a kickstart. This is something to ignite. This is something just to make you aware, to whet your appetite, and to get you developing and moving forward. Now, last night we talked about the first competency, which was leadership. And we told you the extremes. People are either timid, too timid, or they're aggressive. But we look for moderation. We look for balance. We look for bold, assertive, visionary, transformational, adaptive leadership, servant leadership. We talked about personal accountability, right? And how that it was very important that you be a self-starter, that you be a person who can be counted on, that you have resourcefulness and initiative, that you can have self-control and self-management. And I gave you some great resources, some books to kind of kickstart that. And that's where we ended last night. So if you're ready to dive back in again this morning, did I ring the chimes? Did I? Yeah, I forget. Who wants to hit the chimes for the break today? Anybody? Look at all the hands going up, okay? This young lady right here, what's your name? Okay, you're going to get to come up. Don't let me forget now, because I'll ring them for you. But you're going to get the honor. You're going to feel such anointing when you do this. It's surprising, but I'm telling you now, Holy Ghost is liable to hit you. You might run or something when you do this. It's just really that way. I like this. I just wanted to open up this morning by showing you a couple things. I like it. Anybody ever seen these characters? Yeah, these are crazy people. We told the incoming pastor that we're a church with a desire to grow, as long as it doesn't mean change or new people or someone sitting in my pew or different music and worship. Or does this relate to anybody? You know, we like change as long as you change everybody else's stuff. Just don't touch my stuff, right? And I love that, because that really kind of sets the stage for what we have to do. Wanted lifelong learners. Say it out loud. This is the skill set, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I say to you, this is not the silver bullet. This is no pixie dust or magic wand class. This is just to kickstart you and to get you going and to realize that you've got to learn. Would you trust a surgeon who had stopped learning? I just want to give you some ideas here. Think about it. Surgeon goes to school 8, 10, 12, 16 years, and then if they stop learning, at what point, if they just stop learning there, at what point, 2 years in, 4 years in, 20 years in, when do you want that surgeon working on you if they hadn't been going to school constantly? It's a great thought, isn't it? You want that surgeon to be learning constantly. Am I right? The best, newest, latest technology or concept or idea, you want them. Let's ask this question. Just look at that guy. Would you trust an airline pilot who relied on outdated training? Who wants to board that plane? Right? No, put him or her back in the simulator, for heaven's sakes. Right? Because it's just too important for them to do it. To my best friend. Oh, I like this. How can you gauge what a best friend is? Here's one of them. Here's a book you haven't read. Now, I'm telling you, you're a super leader. If you want to be a best friend to somebody, I want you to, remember, we're not after just getting information. I want to change some behavior. So if you want to try and change some behavior, think about a book that I've been talking about. Think about a book that's meant something to you, and buy that book. I don't care. You can go to thrift books. You can go buy it cheap. You can, give something away that you've already read if you want to. I don't care. Give a book to your friend. Start doing things and behaving like someone who is a lifelong learner, and start helping to develop other people. Here's what I have found. If you start doing things like that, it's like planting seed, and seed comes up. Then God starts doing things in your life that are similar to that, and will bring people into your life. John Maxwell said it this way: if you want to lead, you have to learn. If you want to continue to lead, you must continue to learn. Let's say that together. You ready? If you want to lead, you have to learn. If you want to continue to lead, you must continue to learn. Powerful, isn't it? And you hear this over and over and over. Most leaders want to grow their church. What then is the one thing? Say one thing. What is the one thing more than any other that will determine the growth of that church. Recently, Bishop, because I'm promoting the benchmark thing and I'm trying to get other states and other state councils and elders to jump on board. I was talking with one group of elders, and a couple of the men asked this question. If we do this, what kind of statistics or data do you have presently as to the kind of church growth that is being generated from this? Does that get you kind of the way it does me? Do y'all hear do you see the difference? Sometimes I think we get the cart before the horse. Do you see that? Church growth. Well, number one, we haven't been doing this long enough to see if it's church growth. And then here's my answer to this. I think, brother, you might have missed the point. This is not about church growth, not initially anyway. It's about ministerial Christian health. It's about helping pastors to be healthy.
People development is our greatest calling.
People development is our greatest calling.
People development is our greatest calling. And I think we've kind of missed that, don't you? I think we really got the cart before the horse. I think we started thinking about how we're going to grow the church instead of what the numbers are going to look like, what the tithe is going to look like, instead of thinking about, well, how healthy is our pastor? How healthy are the members of the church? How many of you think that if we backed up and got that right, then the other might take care of itself? But to get ahead of it and to say, see how that misses the mark? Tell us how this is going to help us grow the church. Well, let's answer that. The growth of the people in that church. And what determines the growth of the people? The growth of the leader. So if you ever want to be the best version of yourself, which is going to make you a leader in some category, and listen, everybody's a leader. Everybody is leading somebody. Let's continue. As long as people are following you, they will be able to go only as far as you go. You can't take them much further than that until you've really become a super leader, and then hopefully some of them will bypass you. They will go right by you, and that's your goal. You want to be able to grab them and pull them by you. If you're not growing, they won't be growing. Either that or they will leave and go somewhere else where they can grow. Some pastors and some leaders don't understand that the reason why they've got a back door and too many people are going out the back door is that they reach a point to where there's a lid. They grow so far, or they realize they're not growing, and they decide to go somewhere else where they will grow, but they're never going to tell you that. Wow.
Doc, can I say something here?
Oh.
But
The very fact that people come to our churches, that expresses their need for fellowship and wanting to be a part. So we have to look, why is it they leave? And so talking about, the memo, I use my phone and then I can delete it once it's done. If it's not, then I leave it on. But it's also structure. Sometimes we're not aware how we're not organized. Nothing is in place, nothing is planned, and and there are people who do it all, so people are not involved. So I don't want to say too much there, but the fact that people come, that's an initial desire for fellowship and wanting to be a part. We have to structure, organize, involve them, and again, even train them in the different areas so they're whole and healthy. And everything doesn't come tumbling down, because if they're empowered and not healthy, then hey, it's going to be a crash.
Well said. So well said. Here's Rick Warren. Anybody ever heard of Rick Warren? Purpose-driven life, purpose-driven church, right? Great author. He said, when a leader reaches a desired position or level of training, there is a temptation to what? Slack off. What's he say? That's a dangerous place to be. Let's apply that to everyone. We reach a place in life. Listen, here's a statistic for you. Ready? When a person reaches about 38 to 40, they've got it down to that. When they get to be about 38 to 40, many times they stop learning. 38 to 40. Why? I mean, boy, that'd be a great discussion, wouldn't it? Because I think that by that time we just think, well, we've kind of either made it or we haven't. We're either frustrated or we just throw up our hands and say, well, I've kind of, reached probably the place I'm ever going to reach. And so the overwhelming majority of people stop learning at 38 to 40. Listen, it's been like a constant growth for me. I've always tried to keep another goal and another something out there, a vision of what I can become, so that I'm growing and I'm learning and I am developing. And they say that to hold off Alzheimer's and things like this, one of the greatest things to do is keep learning. The moment that you stop learning, you stop growing in so many ways, and you start creating situations. It's a dangerous place to be. Becoming the best version of you starts with what? Self-awareness. But awareness must then be connected with an ample dose of continuous learning. You become aware of something. You become aware of a deficit. You become aware of some place, some aptitude, some competency, some set of knowledge base that you need to grow in, some habit that you've got to learn. You've got to develop. You've got to continually put into practice so that you will become a different person. Listen to this. The super skill of the 21st century is what? Boy, isn't that something? Learning to learn. Because it's so different today. And we've got to be able to learn to learn. You're too busy to learn. That's what most people tell me. Well, what's the antidote to that? Learn to be what?
Less busy.
In other words, the only thing you can do, you can't go pushing something else into your life. What's going to have to happen? Something's going to have to stop. And again, Peter Drucker saying to us, don't just tell them what to do, start by helping them to see what they got to stop doing, so that they can do the better things, the greater things, the more important things. And that's what's important for you, for your family, for your church, for your ministry. And everybody can't just stay busy doing stuff all the time. Listen, being busy doesn't mean that you're effective. I see lots of people running to and fro. And a lot of times, Bishop Steve, it's not because they can't be effective, but it's that what you just said. They don't have a structure. And that's part of what having a to-do list and an implementation device does, is it writes it down. It puts it to where it's visible, to where you can see what you're getting done and what you're not getting done, what you're accomplishing, what you're not accomplishing. But to be able to become the best version of yourself, just what the bishop said, you're going to have a structure. You're going to have something that helps you so that you're not just all over the place. Most people listen to this. Here, this is going to help you. Most people spend their days, too many people spend their life just reacting to stuff. Just whatever happens. They don't really have a plan for the day. Just whatever phone call comes in, whatever a person asks you to do, whatever comes to your mind at the moment. Can you believe that? Maybe it's so quiet in here, I can hear crickets. Right? And I even can hear crickets from the people that are on Zoom. You're convicted too, right? A to-do list keeps you going, keeps you busy, it keeps you prioritized, it gives you something to live for, it gives you what Rick Warren called purpose. I have purpose for every moment of every day. And here's the thing, it takes discipline to stop interruptions from taking over your to-do list.
Yeah.
You still have to say, now there are some interruptions, it depends. Say it depends. It's a true interruption. And people are part of that. One person said, if it weren't for people, I could get something done. right? But people are important. But you have to know when to say no to that, or you have to know how to say, I have a hard stop at a certain time. Say hard stop. You know what a hard stop is? In the corporate world, they use it all the time, especially when they have to meet with people all the time. They will not. And how many of you pour out of the relationship bucket? Only you? 2, 3, 4. How many of you pour out of a task bucket? You're more task oriented. It doesn't matter. But those of us that pour out of a relationship bucket really get into trouble, because we'll start talking to someone. We can talk to someone for 2 or 3 hours, and it feels good to us. We get energy from that. But here's the thing: if you're a person that wants to get something done, you have to limit that. You have to limit yourself, and you have to. And here's what I try to do: I try to say 30 to 50 minutes. Sometimes quicker. Depends on where I'm at. 15, 20 minutes. If you're focused, you can get a lot done in a conversation in 15 to 20 minutes if you stay focused and you don't chase a lot of rabbits. If it's being more pastoral, then you might need 30 to 50 minutes. But very seldom do you need more than 30 to 50 minutes. It's just, you're just going places you don't need to be going. You need to be moving on. So I typically will tell people when I'm starting a phone call or a conversation, I will say I have a hard stop at 11:30 because I've got another appointment. Whether I actually have another appointment with a person or not, that doesn't make any difference. I have appointed my time for that day because at 11:30 I'm getting back to writing. I'm getting back to researching. That's an appointment for me, because if I don't stay with that, I'll never get anything done. You see what I'm saying? If I'm going to lunch, I give myself 30 to 45 minutes, and then I got to get back to lunch. How many of you know that if you go to lunch, then all of a sudden these crazy ideas start popping into your head of all the things that you should be doing that you forgot to do, right? Oh, I forgot to go to the cleaners. Oh, I forgot to pick my shoes up at the tailor. Oh, I need to go get that dress. Oh, I forgot batteries for the kids. Oh, I was supposed to pick up something, right? Anybody like this? Well, that's what this is for. What you do is you pull over, or at the next stoplight, you write those things down. You do not interrupt your schedule to go do those things, unless it is an emergency. Very few of those are emergencies. Where do those things go? Tonight, when I'm sitting down, all those things that the devil told me to do to interrupt my schedule. See? He'll tell you good things to do, but it interrupts your schedule. And it keeps you from being productive. It keeps you from being on track. Do you see what I'm saying here? And so and the heart is exceedingly deceitful too. Listen, you sabotage yourself. Oh, I got to go do this. No, you don't. Write it on your book. And tonight, you prioritize it when you think. You think about it. You don't react to it. Say, think about it, don't react to it.
Does it have to be that small? Because I have a salt and pepper book that I use like this. Right, and each time I accomplish, I just cross off.
Absolutely not. It does not have to be that small. I use that simply because it's just practical to stick in my pocket, my shirt pocket, and I can keep it with me most all the time, because that part that I'm just telling you, that's where I get most of my real good stuff to do. Most of us have so many responsibilities, so much going on, that we can't think of it all unless you write it down. This is why you need a routine. You can use the cell phone. Bishop uses the cell phone. My wife now will use her cell phone more. There's a couple really good apps out there. Google has a to-do list and reminders. Technology can help you. Notifications that help you remember certain things, So there are, and this is why I give you Atomic Habits and Deep Work, those books. Because what you're going to have there is you're going to have people who have figured this out. You don't have to reinvent the world. We'll go find people that know how to do this and are doing it well and learn from them. And that's what I'm telling you. Deep Work and Atomic Habits will change your life. A lot of what I'm telling you right now are the kinds of things you're going to get in that. So I don't care if it's a phone, if it's your laptop, if it's a bigger book.
Yeah, I'm handling
smaller book.
I'm handling different accounts for different businesses.
Yep.
And sometimes I check them off, and then when my family shows up, when I have something to do, I'm always saying, why is it that you're always showing up when I have something to take care of? So sometimes I have to say no to them. This is not going to work. So.
Yeah, and you do. And you might think, well, that's rude and so on and so forth. Well, sometimes it's rude for somebody to just walk into your life and expect that you drop everything and, you know, and probably shouldn't say that to them if you want to keep them as a family member or a friend. But nevertheless, do you see that? It's inconsiderate.
It always seems like an emergency when they come. So,
Oh, yeah.
geez, we need help with this right away.
Are you hearing what she's saying? It seems like it's emergency for them. They come. Why? Because they're spending their time reacting. It is an emergency to them. Because it's everything. Listen, how many of you know people that if there's not a crisis, they will create a crisis? Now you see how many of you know people like this? It's always a crisis. They wake up in the morning with a crisis. Why? Because if it enters their head, they got to do it. They're not structured. They're not intentional. They're not deliberate. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's another one of those books. You need to get it. He talks about stuff like this. And he talks about the quadrants of life. And there are 4 quadrants of life. And one of them is the crises quadrant. And he says that too many people are living in the crises quadrant. They're just moving from crises to crises to crises. And then another one, you know, he says is important but not urgent. And then he calls another one urgent. And then he calls it important. And he says what the goal of ourselves is to live in the quadrant of the important. And you can't live in the quadrant of the important unless you're intentional. You have to be intentional. And that's where your structure comes in. And this is where routines come in. And how many of you agree that there are so many, and I'm talking young people, teenagers, all of you that are listening to me today, we all fall in this category. There's so much happening, so much going on. Our lives are so full of stuff. We have so many responsibilities that you feel there's just absolutely no way to get it all done. Anybody feel that way? You can feel overwhelmed. You know the meme that says, I have so much to do I can't die for the next 99 years. Right? It's going to take me that long to get it done. Of course, that's not going to happen. Feeling that way is probably going to kill you before the 99 years because you're stressed out all the time. So what you have to do is you have to live intentionally. You have to live conscious and aware of what's going on and what's happening. You have to have a plan. Say, I need a plan. And then work your plan. And you just got to be intentional about everything that you do. So this is where routine and habit come in. Say routine and habit. Yeah, you got to have a routine. And again, Atomic Habits is going to help you explain what those routines look like. I want you to think for a minute what your routine looks like. And now I'm going to guarantee you that most of you already have a routine. You do. It can be healthy or unhealthy. Most of the time, our routine, we never really thought about our routine. We just kind of get up and we do certain things every morning. Let's just think about the first hour. Here's what you're going to read in Deep Work and Atomic Habits. The first hour of every morning is your atomic hour. That's the hour where you set the stage for the productivity or the unproductive day that's ahead. And I'm going to say this, probably the first 15 to 20 minutes is going to set the stage for that hour. But you need to intentionally decide what you are going to do for that hour. Every morning, it all looks like Groundhog Day. You ever seen the movie Groundhog Day where the guy gets up and every morning and he's having to do the same thing over and over and over until he figures something out? But most of the time, you need to kind of figure it out. What does my morning look like? And let's back up about 8 to 10 hours. 8 to 10 hours. First of all, you need to figure out how much sleep you need. How many of you can get by on 6 hours sleep. Okay? I hate you. Yeah. It takes me 8 to 9 hours. Really, 8.5 to 9 hours is what I need. And that's just the truth. 10 hours is like totally replenishing my batteries. Listen to that. What? But, it's crazy. I can get by on 7 to 8 hours sleep for about a week, 2 weeks. And then at some point, I'm going to have a 10-hour sleep. Just going to have a 10-hour sleep. Got to catch up. Now, more than that, every couple of weeks I'll get a headache from sleeping too long and just have to get up. But to get the rest you need, you have to go to bed at a certain time. And here's what they say. At least an hour before bedtime, do not look at your cell phone, do not look at an iPad, do not look at a computer screen. Don't look at anything that has bright lights that go into your eyes. You need to get that out of your head because that keeps the random access memory of the brain going, and the residual is going to keep you from falling asleep faster. So you have to discipline yourself to cut that off. Get it out. Let the brain just think. You can read a book. You can read the Bible. You can pray. You can think. You can talk to your spouse or a child. Do whatever. Dim the lights. That's exactly right. What I like to do is listen to Audible. I'll turn a book on, or I have a app that is a sound app, and I'll turn on rain, gentle rain falling. Turn the lights out, gentle rain falling, and just let my mind just go. Just go. And here again, my book is sitting there beside my bed, because I'd say at least 1 out of every 5 to 7 days a great idea comes up, and I want to write it down, and then I'll just go right back to sleep, or try to go back to sleep, and that helps you. And here's the other thing that you do 8 to 10 hours or 6 to 10 hours before. You set out your clothes the night before. And if you need to run, if you need to exercise or jog, you set all of that out the night before. And you've already reset the rooms. Say, reset the rooms. Everybody know what I'm talking about? You've cleaned, you haven't done this clean, but you've picked everything up. You've got everything set. You put the dishes in the dishwasher. You pushed go. It's going to be ready in the morning. You've set your coffee for the next morning, and it's ready to go. Don't wake up so frantic. Oh, I got to get my coffee. Oh, I got to get this. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, look at the house. It's terrible. I'll get it later on. And if you do that, then it just all starts piling up on you, and it just makes you crazy. But if you do it incrementally, and you stay on top of it, how do you eat this frog? How do you eat this elephant? One bite at a time. Don't let it get caught up. So you schedule it, your routine. What day or days are you going to do your laundry? Schedule it. I make sure that my laundry's done on Thursdays. All of that's going to take place on Thursdays. And a lot of times now, because I have the kids in there, I have to do Tuesdays as well. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm just going to do laundry. It's going to, I got to plug it in there and do it. And I'm going to wash it, I'm going to dry it, and I'm going to hang it up. And I'm going to get it done. And I've got my clothes that I'm going to take to the laundry. I'm going to take it to the laundry. I've got to pick it up from the laundry. You put that on your to-do list. If you don't, you forget that you took clothes to the laundry, and about 3 months later, you wonder where that piece went. Everybody ever done that? Yeah. Hopefully they'll call you. But oh man, I forgot. But you got to keep that down, right? And so, what is your routine? It's setting up a routine that stacks things in such an order to where you prioritize it. Now watch this. Here's how little it gets. But this is what Atomic Habits and Deep Work and these things are going to teach you. You have to get the little things. It's those atomic, those nucleus things that make a big difference, but it saves you time. After I run, and then I've got my shoes here. Number one, I got to take all of those clothes and I've got to put them in the hamper so they're put away so that they're not thrown all over the floor, because if I leave them thrown all over the floor, that's not going to make Shirley happy. And so you see what I'm saying? You got to do things. So I put that away, but here's my shoes. Well, I took my shoes off without untying them because I was, trying to get in the shower. But here's the thing. Reach down when you get your shoes because you're going to put your shoes up right there. Not just going to leave them out in the middle of the floor. You're going to put your shoes up. Now, this is going to help somebody. You don't think this is helpful. You're going to pick your shoes up. When you pick them up to put them on the rack or put them where they need to go, you untie the shoe. I don't know about you, but it frustrates me every time I go get ready to go running and I'm trying, probably I'm to have to reach down and untie my shoes. I like to just pick that shoe up, stick that baby on, tie it, and go on. Untie the shoe. It's reset the shoe. Do you see what I'm saying? Reset the shoe. Get it ready for the next time. And you set your clothes out. It tells your brain ahead of time, I'm going to do this again. Are you seeing how you're training yourself? I am going to be orderly. I am going to be structured. I am going to put my things in place. My life is not going to be chaotic. My life is not going to be helter-skelter. I'm taking control now. How many of you have garbage has to be put out a certain time, certain day? Do you know how many people they forget it for 20, 30 years? You know why? They didn't write it down. You hear me? How many arguments take place in families with husbands and wives because typically he cannot remember to put the garbage out? Hear the little laughter down here? See? We're all different, but we're predictably different. Doggone it, write it down. Put the garbage out, it's Thursday night. That's on your implementation device. Put the garbage out. I'm telling you, it changed my marriage when I learned to put the garbage out on Thursday. You meddling. Now stay out of my preaching. Is this helping anybody? See, routine. Set yourself a routine. Whatever it is in the morning, stick with it. Make sure you get up at a certain time. You go to bed at a certain time. And it depends, reward yourself. But stick with it. Know that you've got to take care of your clothes. You've got to take care of your car. You've got to take care of your bed. You get up in the mornings. You're going to take your medicine. That's on your routine. I'm going to take my medicine. Because if you get up and you're helter-skelter, you can go 6-7 hours and forget to take your blood pressure medicine. And if you're like me, if I forget to take my blood pressure medicine, I only take a little bit. But around 1 or 2 o'clock, I can feel it. Take your meds. I don't have to remind myself to use the bathroom at this age. My body's telling me. But you got a routine, right? I'm going to take my meds. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee. I'm going to sit down and relax and drink my cup of coffee and just think through my day. I'm looking at my to-do list. What are the things I need to get done today? What are my ugly frogs? What are my MITs? So I'm starting to structure my life. Before I went and get my coffee, I made my bed, so I know when my bed's made. My cat even knows I make my bed every morning. She won't get up on the bed or jump up on the bed to get her treat until my bed's made. And she's meowing the whole time, telling me to make my bed. I know what she's saying. Make your bed, make your bed. Because I want my treat. So she's like an alarm, right? I'm going to drink that, and then I'm going to go take my shower. I'm going to take my shower, and I'm going to get dressed whether or not I have appointments or not. Right. Even on days when I don't have appointments, I'm going to take my shower and get dressed. Now, what I wear is going to be a little bit different, but it just makes you feel better, ladies and gentlemen, when you get up, clean yourself, wash your hair, wash your face. For men, shave, take care of yourself. If I'm going to be around the house and I'm going to go to the office downstairs, I'll put my shorts on and a nice comfortable shirt. But I want to be semi-presentable in case somebody comes to the door or if I have to jump out and run to the store, right? Or if I've got appointments, I'm going to have my clothes laid out so that about 45 minutes before that appointment, I can put on the suit or I can put on the clothes and I can go. Is this making sense? But this is my routine. Listen, you can't believe the people that live their lives and don't think about this stuff. Common sense is not always common practice. Okay, it's 25 minutes after. We're going to take a 11-minute break, and we'll come back at 25 minutes till.
15.
Oh, come on up here, young lady. Yes. Look at you. Some of you were keeping me accountable.
Come on, Chris. You gotta ring that bell for you. Ring that golden bell.
Are you ready for this?
Left, right, to left. Thank you, Chris.
You feel the anointing? Okay, come back in 11 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
If I had y'all in my life, I'd be good. Thank you, though. Yeah, it's rich. It's good, isn't it? Yeah. Everybody, we just wanted to let you know we have coffee and refreshments on the other side over there if you need to have a little snack during break. And so please, make yourself at home.
It says good, very good, quality. But it's more for us. That's listen.
What I wanted to do was fix it. You know me, I just haven't brought it. I want to fix it, take a picture, text them, it's fixed, you break it again, it's yeah, man, we're glad to cover once it's done, let them know it's glad to take care of it. You gotta get Steve from the dance. Put that whole in there. Yo,
Okay, Bishop Lee, if you'll walk out into the highways and the byways and compel all of my lost lambs to come back into the shelter. Boy, I've been having a good time talking with you guys. Coming up and sharing ideas and asking questions and diving deeper. And it's exciting to see that this stuff is interesting to you, that you're implementing some of this, and that you've already hacked life to a degree yourself. So it's really, really cool to be able to see that. Talking with some of you, and you've gone to thrift books, you've gone to Amazon now, and remember, you have to compare prices. Sometimes Amazon's going to be your best bet. Thrift will have it higher than Amazon for whatever reason. It just depends on supply and demand. So you just have to, don't take for granted that thrift books is going to be the cheapest. Compare prices. Always look at Amazon, look for the new and used book category. It's always there. You click on it, and it'll take you to those used booksellers that have it. But always look at the reviews. How many stars do they have? If they have less than a 4-star, full 4-star or 5-star, I go with. But otherwise, they've got some problems with delivery, and you can get stuck with that. But I haven't ever been stuck with a 4 or 5-star person, and I look for good or very good on the book quality. I don't have to have a brand new book. I just don't want one of my books that's been written all over and stuff, but because I want to write all over it, right? Okay, and I was talking with someone. I will typically do an Audible first. I buy it on Audible because it's really cheaper, and I listen to it in my car. I listen to it when I walk. I listen to it at night. before I'm going to bed. I always have to usually listen to that again because when I'm going to bed, I won't remember as much as I thought I would, but it helps me go to sleep. So I'll listen to it. But when I hear something that I really, really like, I will stop and write that down. And then if I hear a lot in that book that I really like, I buy the book because I want to go back and have that. That's what goes on my bookshelf. And I have this little memo, then I have my calendar, which is my implementation device, but then I carry this with me all the time too. I just went back and got this out of my backpack back there. And it's interesting what this is, and it's a little bigger, you can see, but I write all sorts of things in here. Like what's on the first page here are the top 10 competencies that I'm working with. Because I want to memorize these, I want to keep them always in front of me when people ask. Sometimes they just blow right past me, so I've got them. So this is like priority memorization. I want to know what my 10 competencies are because people constantly are calling me. I have highlighters and ink pens in my backpack, because you see what I'm doing here? I'm writing stuff, highlighting things, and all these colors are color-coded for me. Let's see here. I mean, I'm just writing down things that I know I need. And what's interesting about this little binder is that it has, divisions. So I can kind of divide it up depending on what I want in certain sections. I've got tons of these, by the way. These go on a shelf. And then I'll write on the front when I'm done what it is so that if I ever want to go back. And it's really weird because I'll write down notes about books and things like that, and I can tell you basically which one of these it's in. And I can go find that quote and I can use it or dig it out. And I can't remember exactly what that was, but I can go find it. So this becomes that. And what I resources and can't find it. But you can, if you structure things and organize things. My problem is I typically do the same thing you do. I don't put them in alphabetical order, but I put them according to at least a system that I've got. All my work for my master's work was in one section. All my PhD stuff was in another section. And then, if it's leadership, if it's team building, if it's conflict management, I try to do that. My problem is that I'm constantly researching and writing, and I'm pulling something off, right? And then, because I'm in a hurry to not clutter my desk, I just stick it back in somewhere. That's where the fly spoils the ointment, because then I find conflict management and team building. Why did you do that? All right.
My problem is I'm running out of space.
You're running out of space? Well, you got to have a bigger office, bigger church. You talk to your wife about it. You need help, brother. Let's go to Brother Lee back in the back.
I got a question from online. It's a little off tangent, but they have a question about leadership content, as in terms of you've been talking about books and podcasts. How do you know which leadership content is credible, lines up with biblical principles, in terms of secular leadership content and etc.? This person consumes a lot of podcasts, and sometimes it's very hard to know if this specific person or model reflects the principles of the Bible. So if you have a metric for that, that's something that they would like to hear from you about.
Yeah, that's a great question. We all need to learn to So you've got to constantly, especially in this day and time, be learning new skills. He also said the relevant question is not simply what shall we do tomorrow, but rather what shall we do today in order to get ready for tomorrow. Man, that's good stuff. In other words, you know, you have to have a routine at the end of your day that looks to tomorrow. You have to have a routine at the end of every month or the beginning of every month that looks to the month. You've got to have a routine at the beginning of every year that looks, and usually what I do is sometime around October, November, look to the next year and say because you've already put stuff on the calendar, right, as it came up. So now I'm saying what do we already know is there. If you're just helter-skelter and you're reactionary, especially if you're a church and you've got a staff or a team or you've got an organization and you're operating helter-skelter, then you're driving everybody crazy. You're overworking everyone. You all have to have these delineations. This is my job and this is what I do. And you have to let them do their job first. Then when you want to cross over, if they need your help or you need their help, you've got to make sure that the time is there for them to be able to do that. Or what you're doing is you're putting unnecessary stress and angst on them so that they, can't do their job. Just making sense? So you've got to have due consideration of your team members. Boy, if we could get to teamwork, I would really like to do that and say that. But it all involves prior planning. Say prior planning. And then working your plan. Okay? So you've got to be able to do that. What can I do today in order to get ready for tomorrow? See, what happens when you haven't done prior planning and preparation, when the event comes or when the day comes or when the responsibility hits, then you've got a very short period of time to pull this off. You see what I'm saying? Even if you planned, there's going to be enough stuff to happen unexpectedly that's going to create some chaos anyway. But you need to minimize the chaos so that you enter into the event, you enter into the cause, you enter into the project. And I say events because in church that's a lot of what we do, right? Programs and events and things. And if we're not, whether it's men's ministries, ladies' ministries, youth ministries, whatever the department is, prior planning is key. I remember seeing the meme one time that said, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Boy, isn't that good? Stings a little bit too, doesn't it? Lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Say it. A little word of advice. Don't say that to your boss. Right? Just keep it to yourself. Yes, sir.
We're talking about being organized and with.
My favorite youth director is coming down.
Yeah. As we talk about being organized and well planned out, within the church, how do you, because just as how we have people that are well organized, we have people that are not. How do you go about, and because it's going to bring about conflict, especially within the church, how do you handle or how do you deal with a situation like that when you have somebody that is organized and somebody that is not? Like for example, in the church you have different departments that are like one leader may be organized and the next one is not. And all of these departments have to work together. So now they're coming together and there is conflict. How do you handle those things?
It all starts with training. And it's at the local church level. Remember what I said last night, that in most of our churches, and I take Lencioni's quote and I use it, pull it through my own means here. Walmart orients and trains its employees better than the church does. We do. We don't train our people. People just come to our churches and we assume that because they've got some success in the corporate world or the business world but here's what happens, and we end up with a hodgepodge of different routines, habits, and methods of doing things instead of a structure. And then what we have is we don't really have an intentional culture. You know, culture is, this is the way we do things around here. Say that. This is the way we do things around here. I think when people come to your church, they ought to know this is the way we do things around here. When they come to your staff, especially if they're paid staff, this is the way we do things around here. And so this is part of what benchmarking is about. It's one part of it. Let's show them what a good job looks like. If you don't show them what a good job looks like, then it's ambiguous. You know? It reminds me of the Old Testament statement that said there was no leadership in Israel, so everybody did what was right in their own eyes. Does that make sense to you? There was no benchmark. There was no structure. There was no culture. Nobody told us this is the way we do things around here. So everybody's doing the things the way they want to do them. No wonder we have conflict. And this is part of what we want to talk about today, is conflict in the church. Part of it is we have not done the things that we need to do to create a conflict-positive environment. To create an environment that shuts down about 75% of conflict that would happen had we just helter-skelterly walked in and let everybody do whatever they want to do. See? And so what I would always do with my church, training has all, and equipping and coaching and mentoring has always been a big part of this. And so I was always, especially once a year, I was having a leadership training event where we would do a Saturday. We would do a Saturday, 3 hours, 9 to 12. We'd have lunch together because fellowship was important. And then we'd do another 2 hours afterwards, and then I'd let everybody go. And I didn't want to keep doing stuff like that because people are busy. One of the things, let me just throw this out there. One of the things that I found after pastoring for 33 years, when I got out there and I was a director of a nonprofit, but I was working like all the rest of my people always did in a job that wasn't a pastor. And even today now, here's what I found out. I found out how incredibly busy everybody was. I found out how incredibly busy my people are. And I was demanding and asking them to stop what they're doing and to come do this in the church. And while it's important, what it did was it made me really stop and think, was all those things that important, or should I prioritized things to say this is more important, this is really important, and to free them up. Listen, we've got some of our church members so busy doing church stuff that they can't do the things that are missional. They can't get out and be involved. They can't even go to some of their kids' events because we've got them so busy and we put pressure on them to where they might see the devil if they don't come to my event. You know, boy, it's quiet. Crickets again. Again, I'm only talking out of experience, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I saw after I walked away, and I would pastor totally different today. Completely different when it comes to planning, organizing, talking about prioritizing what is really important that my people need to stop and give one of their Saturdays or one of their Fridays or one of their whatever. Even with leader labs, it's extremely important. But how often, so you have to say, how often can I ask that? So what I'm saying here, brother, is it goes back to training. You've got to be able to train your people. But you've got to have a model. You've got to have a template that says this is what a good job looks like. This is what it looks like in this department, this department, this department, this department, and this is how congruent it is. We're all going to be on the same page. Again, I hope Scripture's hitting you. How could two walk together unless they be agreed? We've never given anything to be in agreement about. This is how I'm going to treat you in your department, and this is how I'm going to treat this department. We're all going to be treated the same way. We're all going to require the same things. This is how we're going to field events. Listen, if you have 5 departments in your church, let's just say the 5 departments, and there's no clearinghouse, and they're able to just promote and do things whenever they want to, wow. That's chaos. And you've got everybody's just wanting to do everything, but they can't. So everybody feels bad. Everybody feels stressed, you know, and that's why a lot of people don't show up to your event. But if you have a meeting, I would always have that training event, and I would tell them, bring your calendars for next year. This is like October or November. Bring next year's calendar. Well, what did that make them do right there? You can't bring next year's calendar if you hadn't thought about next year's calendar. And here's what I would say. You have to have like a criteria. When we put something on the calendar, 90% of it has to be done when we say it's going to be done, or it don't get done. Because one of the ways you create more chaos is that if you say you're going to do something and then you keep moving the date. Well, what that does is that begins to walk all over the dates of other people's stuff. Is any of this making any sense to anybody? So you have to plan ahead of time, and you have to, and I would give out a calendar for my church folks a year in advance. On January, when I do my vision casting, I gave them a calendar, and I assured them that 90% of the stuff, there's always emergencies, there's always death, there's always crises. There could be things that will really wipe some of this stuff out. But our goal is, we're very intentional. 90% of what you've got on this calendar is going to take place. And it's your job to pick and choose what you and your family can or can't, depending on gymnastics or parent-teacher associations or basketball events or soccer events. And we know you're busy. That makes people feel pretty doggone good that you're considering them this way, right? And therefore, when they can, they're going to get involved. So you plan it out. And then you tell them this is how we're going to do it. But if you don't train them and you don't show them what a good job looks like, and you don't get them all together, get everybody in the same room, say it. You get all your department heads in the same room and you all talk about it and you discuss it, and everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's able to talk about it. And you get all that out. But when you walk out of that room, you've got a pretty good skeleton of where we're going next year. Listen, that makes life easier on everybody, everywhere. And watch, when you need to partner with another department, or you need the help of a colleague or a friend or a team member, you tell them in advance, I'm going to need you for this event. You know that. Why? Because you don't have the skills that some of your team does.
Correct.
Pastor, that's you too. Just because you're the pastor does not give you carte blanche just to call on somebody at the last minute when they've already got something going on over here. Because what you're doing is, they're not going to say no to you, but what did you do? You just stressed them out. Because now they got to help you, and they want to help you, but they want to help you, but they also want to be successful and fulfill their responsibilities. I'm saying things that some of us need to hear. So it's about prior planning. It's about making sure that you're able to plan. Am I answering your question? Follow-up question? So that can be clear, or does that do it? Okay. Then I know that the follow-up question is going to come from my great friend, Brother Gibbs. He calls people in Cleveland and tells on me and then has them call me. That's what he does today. Go ahead, Brother Gibbs. I'm talking to you. Yes, I am.
Yeah, like with the follow-up question from Bishop Rouget. Irrespective.
Hold on, he's got your microphone for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm saying with the follow-up question from Bishop Rouget.
Is it on?
I think he needs a battery. Irrespective of what or how many training you'll give some people, there are some in the church who believe that their ideas, their concepts, their counsel is like if God gave it to them themselves. And if you don't follow it, you will have conflict.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's address that. You are exactly right. So what you're saying is, some people aren't going to be a team player no matter what you do.
That's right. Yeah.
So this is where leadership takes over.
We remove them.
This is where leadership takes over. Remember, here it is. You got to, and watch. I know what I'm saying. None of us want to hear this, but we need to hear this, ladies and gentlemen. This is where leadership takes over. I had these statements, and you need to write some of these statements down, because this is what you say, and it's right. Paul said, "Let everything be done
decently and
in order." Go read the Psalms to them and say how important it is that the church be a body of unity. Say unity. It is like the oil that is poured down over the prophet and run. Remember this? See, we shout for that stuff, but we don't want to live it. But somebody's got to be the leader in the bunch. Bold, assertive, not aggressive. You don't want to hurt. Because a lot of these people are good people. They've just been allowed to do this their whole life. But it's got to stop somewhere. And somebody's got to stand up and listen. Sometimes, Brother Gibbs, they're a bully. They've realized that if they just push themselves forward and just say it, that even the pastor's going to back up. But somebody has to say, But see, this is why policy and procedure. Boy, I'm going to help somebody right here. Policy and procedure take away the personality.
So we operate.
It's a system. That's right, Bishop. It's not about me liking you and not liking you, the way you do things or don't do things. This is the way we do things round here.
Correct.
If you want to be helter-skelter and do it your way, there's about 50 or 60 other churches within a 5-mile walking distance. Find yourself one and go there. Somebody needs to get real in the house. I'm telling you. Now, I have very seldom in my ministry of 33 years had to tell anybody that. You don't want to do that. But there's been one or two that I had to say, listen, it's very evident that you do not fit the way we do things around here. And so either you've got to comply and do the things the way that we do them around here. It's all written down, you know. And here's some of the things I would say to people, because this is such, boy, y'all struck on it, right? This is such a problem in the church. I would say to them, here at the Oak Ridge Church of God, we function as a choir and a team, a choir and chorus, not an individual singing a solo. If you've got a choir standing up here, 40, 50 people singing, and you've got one person that just wants to jump right out there and do their own thing when it's not their time to do their thing, you got a problem. Right? And that's a pretty good analogy, am I right? But that's what happens when you got a person like this. That's a Diotrephes. And the New Testament talked about it. Diotrephes loveth to have the preeminence among you. And they're going to have their way, and they're going to bully you to get their way. And they probably never had anybody stand up to them. Now, 9 out of 10 times they'll back away. And it's going to be tough, and it's going to sting, and they're going to talk about you over dinner. And you're just going to have to bleed and get over it. You're in the arena. That's why you're the pastor. The buck stops here. Right? And you say it lovingly, you say it with consideration, but you're bold, you're assertive, and you just let it lay out there. But you have it as policies and procedures. You set that up. That's why you get with your elders and say, this is the way we're going to start doing things around here. You get with all of your department heads. You just don't start enacting it. You talk about it. You meet with them. And every year, all the new people that come on board for your new members class, you tell them, we do things decently and in order here. And if you're going to work in a particular ministry, we have a training for you. Even if it's an hour, ladies and gentlemen, they need to have an orientation. Remember, Walmart does a better job orienting new people to do their job than the church does, for heaven's sake. We are so hungry for red meat. Volunteers. Here's what we see when we give people the right hand of fellowship: red meat.
Yes.
Man, they got energy. They can work well in the ladies' ministry. They can look, sorry Karen, I don't mean to be so, they look good in the youth ministry. They look good. Watch this. And here's where we really want to throw the red meat, the nursery.
Wrong place.
Don't you think you ought to give them some training to work in the nursery? And I always, when I volunteer people or I try to get volunteers, we always did that July and August every year in the summer. We called it the draft, the annual draft. Why do you think the football, baseball, basketball teams draft? They spend 2 to 3 months drafting the new people, picking the new people, and then they'll bring them in and train them. So, and I say to them, watch this. Always have a contract that they sign for a year. We want you to serve from September 1 or September 9 after Labor Day, whatever that is for you and your calendar year, all the way to August 31st. Here's what we do. We bring people in, put them in a position, and they have to serve there forever. They don't have a way to get out, and you don't have an ample right way to get them out. But if you say the contract's for a year, you're going to get to decide whether or not you want to stay in this ministry, and we get to decide whether or not we want you to stay or we want to move you somewhere else. Because if they're really good, if you're faithful in small things, we want to move you to somewhere else. Right? You don't ever have to say that, but you know that in the back of your mind. What if they're absolutely horrible? Well, you need a way to get them out without hurting somebody. You want to take away the opportunity for them to fail. Because you don't want people talking about them. Oh, Sister So-and-so's in the nursery this morning. Well, I ain't taking my kids in there. Well, everybody's talking about them. You're hurting them by leaving them in that position. So you've got to have a way of getting them out and transitioning them to another person. Listen, I had somebody not too long ago said that they had a youth pastor in their church, a large church of about 700-800. And the youth pastor had been the youth pastor for 42 years.
He's not youth anymore.
You know that and I know that. Okay, why is this person, now this was a person in my leader labs, and I was talking about this stuff, and he raised his hand, and I would have, you ever hear somebody say something and you wish you could stop them and say, I wish you hadn't said that out loud.
Yeah.
But he said, I've been here 5 years, and he said, my youth pastor has been the youth pastor in this church for 42 years. Answer me, why has that person now been a youth pastor for 42 years?
My Lord.
Huh? See, listen, all of you. See, all the idea. Because no one has ever been a leader to stand up and say it's time for you to transition. And here's what he said. I said, and because here's what, when he said that, I said, why? And you can imagine the room of about 40 other people sitting in that lab in Cleveland, Tennessee, the executive leadership training that I do there. And everybody is focused on this individual. What? You can imagine, everybody wants to pull him off to the side and talk about this, right? Give counsel. What seems to be common sense counsel. So I look and I say, why? He said, because I don't want to be the one that hurts him. He's been in the church forever. He's a sweet guy. He loves our kids. They love him. But our youth group in the 5 years I've been here went from 80, and we've got like 16 now. And those kids come only because their moms and dads make them come because of their relationship to the man. What am I going to do? Wow. Now that's an extreme, but this is the problem that we have if we don't have a way of contracting, you say, or setting a policy and procedure that says we need to move through things this way and this is the way we're going to do it. And so my advice to him was you're going to have to transition him to another ministry. You're going to have to slide him over because he doesn't need to be hurt. He doesn't need to be just kicked out with nothing to do, but you need to find something that's a passion of his that you can help him and convince him. You've got to influence him, that's leadership, to move over and to give someone else an opportunity to get in. Pastor, I think you had a statement and then I'll come to you. We have the mic. Yep. What time are we having lunch?
Good
Anybody
time.
know?
Good time.
12 o'clock?
Good.
Because if I let y'all have your way, we probably won't eat. Y'all are going
Yeah,
this
we
hard
don't
and
have to
heavy.
eat. We're fasting.
He wants to keep going, so y'all are fasting. 12 o'clock, you think?
Well, the church has sponsored lunch for us, so we need to time fast.
Okay. Is that at 12, Pastor?
I don't know whatever time the food is.
Okay, somebody will tell it.
Somebody will let you.
Okay, I just want to be considerate of your people and make sure we stop at the right
food,
time. Okay,
yes.
thank you.
My comment is two things in that situation. Somebody is anointed to preach doesn't mean they're good in everything. So most of the case, pastors need to learn, let the preachers do their preaching, assign laymen or laywomen to coordinate things, so they will not burn out. Different people continuously change to coordinate. None of our pastors coordinate anything. The lay people do the coordination. Number two, in that case, every leader need to train someone else to do their job. So that youth pastor's case, if a system there or a pastor to step in whom you're training now. So you don't need to preach today or address the youth meeting today. Someone else has to do it. If that leader knows I need to train 2 or 3 people, there's enough people there to take his place.
Yeah.
So we will not walk into that problem. And also the burnout will not happen. Do not allow anyone to take the ownership of your department. Very simple. You are the man or you are the woman of the house.
That's good. Don't ever allow someone to take ownership of the department. And here's the statement that I would say. I would say department heads and positions in our church are rented positions. They are given to you for a season. Only for a season. And you are the person to take care of that until we transition you to another place. But this all starts, you nip it in the bud. Does that communicate here? You nip it in the bud up front with training. And most of us would just have to go back and start this. So that's going to be change. Yes, Brother Gibbs, that's going to create conflict. Because you come to a church, let's say you're a pastor already there and your people have been behaving this way forever, and then you come and you tell them you're going to implement this. You think they're going to like that? Absolutely not. You have to take it on the chin. But somebody needs to take it on the chin, because you need to do it. You don't need to hand this ministry over to somebody else. You need to be the one to suck it up and take care of this before you give it to somebody else. Don't leave this problem for the next pastor and the administrative bishop to deal with. You deal with it. This is leadership. Do you see why I say we have way too many managers and not enough leaders? We don't have policies and procedures. We don't have benchmarks that show people what a good job looks like. Therefore, everybody's doing what's right in their own eyes. And the church is run like chaos instead of decently and in order. And as Pentecostals, here's the very first thing people are going to throw at you. Well, you just trying to get in the way of the moving of the Spirit. Where the Spirit is, there is liberty. And I like to say, well, you probably never had the Spirit really in your life because of the chaos and the undecent, disorderly life that you're living. And you want to bring that stuff into the church. Now, you can't say that, but that's what you want to say, right? Yeah, which one of the spirits are you talking about? That's not the one that I hear in the Scripture. Because that's not creating unity. Because we act as a choir and chorus, not soloists in competition with one another. Because that creates ego and rivalry instead of a team. Okay? Who else? Did you have your hand up? You wanted to say something?
I do agree with Pastor also about it to that.
By the way, what he said, did anybody pull that through the biblical filter? He made a comment about a policy in his church, but that comes right out of Scripture. That's the book of Acts. That's where the disciples ran into this same problem shortly after the Jesus. And they were having to give food out to the widows and do the humanitarian work. And they said, we can't give ourselves to preaching and teaching. They prioritized. And they were making everything decent and in order. And they were delegating. Find yourself some people that can do this and give it to them. Here's the problem. In the church, we try to do everything ourselves. Instead of equipping people and trying to put ourselves out of a job. But in the kingdom, if you do this, you're just doing the kingdom business, and God will never let you go without a job. He's the one that appoints. Go ahead. Good comment, Patrick.
Correct. Is it okay to say that in the next 6 or 7 months that the offices will be dissolved?
Yeah.
So that everyone know, okay, I'm the secretary. In about 7 months, then my position is going to be dissolved.
Yeah.
So then you can make the choices and the changes and all of that.
It
Is that okay
depends.
to say?
It depends. It depends on what we're talking about here. If we're talking about departments, teachers, department heads, all this kind of thing. What I would always do is I had my draft, June, July, August, start July, August. I would promote that, put it on everything, even do some funny videos with my team, my young people, to show people out exercising, getting in shape, because they know the draft's coming. You start letting people know, let us know if you're interested in a particular ministry. If you want to be considered, we will take it under advisement. You're not saying just because you say I want to be that you're going to be it.
That's correct.
We're going to take it under advisement.
It will be a privilege.
But you say to everybody publicly, say publicly. You say to them, these considerations and these appointments are for 1 year only. For 1 year only. Then as you get to around May, because schools start, you see, you got it in the regular cycle of a school year too. So around May, kids are going to start coming out of schools in June. You start saying to them, thank you for all the volunteers that have been volunteering all this time. Don't wait till summer, because then everybody's going everywhere. We won't have the same numbers, right? But somewhere in May, I would always have an appreciation Sunday, where I'm going to appreciate everybody who served this year. Now, what am I doing? Number one, I'm encouraging the heart, Bishop, which you said last night. Model the way, inspire shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, empower them, and encourage the heart. Recognize, celebrate, and reward the people for doing the kind of things that we want emulated in the church. So in May, I would have a celebration on Sunday, and I would have them all come up, and I would say something kind to them, have the whole church, and I'd let them know ahead of time. 4 weeks that we're going to have this celebration. That helps your attendance too. Correct. Because everybody wants to come and be celebrated and recognized, right? And so they come up. It's just the right thing to do. Then they come up and you celebrate them. And during that time, you let them know, thank you for serving. We all know that here in about 90 days, your contract's coming to an end. Or your covenant. Let's call it a covenant. That's more biblical, right? Your covenant's coming to a close. We thank you for serving. Some of you are going to want to serve further. Please let us know if that's what you want. Well, what I'm doing, or one of my staff members are doing behind the scene, we've already started having those conversations with people. You see what I'm saying? Behind the scenes, you're already having the conversations. And as a staff, you've already talked about who's doing a really good job, who is it that's not a problem. But let's be honest, sometimes people are creating problems. And you don't want them to be hurt, neither do you want them to hurt that ministry. So we've got to transition them out. So you start working to find another way to do that. And so what you're doing is, and you say to them in that April, May, June time, in 3 to 4 months now, you're going to be transitioning out. So you have to be very careful how you say that. I'm not going to dissolve your position. I'm not, that kind of thing. This goes for church elders and council members as well. And the Church of God has a book of minutes that will help you to say this is the denominational policy. Because what happens is sometimes you have an elder who gets in and someone has not followed the book of minutes, and that elder's been there for 15 years. And he or she is running that church. And you need a way to, so there is a set criteria to where you serve a certain amount of time, and I don't care, well, I would care if it was Jesus himself, but it could be the Apostle Paul, but he's transitioning out after 2 years. And listen, sometimes that cuts both ways. There's sometimes you want him or her to transition off the board. You can't wait for them to transition off. But then there are other times when they're so good that you want to keep them on. You wish you could keep them there. Don't you dare fall into that. Because you're setting the model. In a year, that person can come back on the board if the people so desire. But you've given the opportunity. What if you've got a devil? You want that devil to go.
Correct.
And then, you know what I'm saying? Hey, Jesus had a board of 12 and one of them was a devil. And so you want a way to get them off. And then once you get them off, you do everything behind the scenes to keep them off. To make sure that these people don't get back on. You know, because you don't need that headache. All right? Okay. Who else?
Yes, I wanted to, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so I was assigned to a ministry and I did the members appreciation service and we did all of that. I know there was a situation where we were to come up with a theme and everyone had there was a, what would you say? There was a lot of situation. My question is when I approached the group, I mentioned to them next month we'll be meeting concerning a theme as we move forward for the next quarter or the next year. And so I'm asking everyone to prayerfully ask Father what the theme will be. Remember that when Father speaks, everyone should be on one accord. So when the following month came, I would ask him, so what is Father saying? What did he say to you? Oh, I forgot to pray about it. Oh, I didn't pray. And in that way, when you ask them what is the Lord saying at this time, many of them who used to fight in a situation as that don't really have much to say, because at that time you want the Holy Spirit to be the one that will lead. And so what are your thoughts towards this? Is that a way to go about it, or is there another way to address this?
For the theme.
Yes. Or in other situations.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to what Bishop closed us with last night, Kouzes and Posner. When leaders are at their extraordinary best, they're doing 5 things. Modeling the way, serving as an example. But then number 2, and he spent a little time on this last night because it's so critical, they're inspiring a shared vision. Say shared vision. That's critical, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just my vision. It's not just your vision. I even like to say this to department heads, and this goes back to training right up front, is that the best way to lead people, even your department, is a shared vision. But let's say that the paid staff, and this is what I always do, the paid staff who spend most of their time involved full-time in the work of the ministry, they came up with a theme for next year of the church, what our theme was going to be, and then everything else was going to, and then when that was announced, then the department heads would also jump on board with that theme. I didn't let them have an opportunity to try and pick the theme for the whole church, because that can go off into chaos real quick when you let everybody have a say. So I would say then you spend some time, coordinating your efforts to go along with this theme, and we want you to get with your team of leaders and have a shared vision that comes back and does that. And I have to be real careful how I address the next thing, but I hope you all get my heart with what I'm saying. You have to be very careful in the church, especially in a Pentecostal church, when you say to people, let the Holy Spirit or let God lead you to pick that thing. Because when someone comes to me and says, here's what the Holy Spirit said to me, discussion's off the table. Do you see? I think we throw that around too frivolously. What does the Holy Spirit say to you? Well, it could be that you just had Domino's pizza with a lot of pepperoni on it last night. And that's where your theme came from. It could be, God knows what. But then it becomes it's really a personal preference. People will come to you and say, what do you say to somebody when they say, well, here's what God said to me? Well, what if you, as the director, don't feel like that's what God said to you? And listen, sometimes you hear it, and you know immediately God wasn't in that. Am I right? Guarantee you've been in those places. Am I right? And that's a tough place. So you just don't even use that terminology. You just say, you pray about it. You seek the face of the Lord. But please include people from your leadership team. on what you're going to bring back to us so that we can take it under advisement. I don't ever want to be put into a place to where I'm having to pick yours because if you don't say things like advisement, take it under advisement, then they're going to use your own words. People will do this to say, you told me that if I told you, you'd use it. Well, I said, no, that's not what I said. I was very clear. This is where clarity is important. Words matter. Say it.
Words matter.
Clarity is important. Words matter.
Clarity is important. Words matter.
Be explicit, not implicit.
Be explicit, not implicit.
We spend way too much time being implicit. We imply things. We think people understand what we're thinking, intending, and they don't. You've got to go out of your way to be explicit. Say it clearly. Say it again. Ask them, what did you hear me say? 9 times out of 10, they will say something you did not say. Because they heard what they wanted to hear. But that's why you write it down. The Bible even says it. Write the vision down. Make it clear so that they who run with it will know how to run. You see what I'm saying? Boy, is that great or what? So applicable to us. So you have to be able to say, does everybody understand what I said? Here's our theme. Here's how we're breaking it down. Here's how we're going to work around that. Here's the way we do things around here. We operate as a choir and chorus, not as soloist in competition. We operate as a choir and chorus, not as soloist in competition. Say it. We operate as a choir and chorus, not soloist in competition. There is no place for ego or rivalry in this church. We are going to be the body of Christ. We're going to operate in policy and procedure. This is not personal. This is culture. Boy, this is good stuff. Okay, who else had their hand up? That's great, though, sister. Thank you so much. Go here and then I'll go back there.
Yeah, I just want to endorse what you just said about making it clear, because I have had the experience in the past few years of assuming that people know what to do without properly explaining, and it has backfired. It has come back to hurt my ministry and to hurt where I'm going, because I thought you knew. And especially when you're taking over a new church. You are, the folks that are there, you thought they are trained, or you thought they know what to do, and then you find out that they are not there, and you have to help them to get to it. So explaining is very important, instead of implying that they know or assuming that they are aware of what to do or where you want to go. The second thing also, we're doing this training, and this is not your first time in New York. And still we're as the state on the board of overseer, we are still struggling with pastors who are still doing the wrong, quote unquote, the wrong things, are not leading genuinely or appropriately or properly, if you use those words. And we have churches who are dying, and they sit there. We're offering tools, opportunities for training. And if we look at our congregation, and even online, it's mostly the leaders, and these are for pastors to come to sharpen their tools, sharpen their pencils, get with the program, to bring the churches to where God's work to where it ought to be. And we are still in dying mode. We're still in the rut, stuck in a rut. And so that's why Pastor Gibbs would say what he said, because there are folks in the church who are married to a position and they need to be divorced. But to divorce them is gonna hurt, you know, and it's so hard. When they are on their faces, that's when it comes to the overseer. That's when it comes to the state board. And there's not much we can do, you know, to resuscitate or to revive. But here are these programs are offered, and they don't take it, they don't comfort, and they wait till the last minute. Then the church, and then we look back, the kingdom of God, not only the church of God, but the kingdom of God. And I'm sure all organizations are having the same dilemma. But I've been to so many churches in this state, Church of God churches, and I've seen how they conduct themselves, and they're so far behind. They're not trained. People are, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
And then when we come to offer these programs, just to pay a measly $200. I mean, you go to Stephen Covey's class. This is not $200. Transit send me to classes that cost $3,000.
Yeah.
And we just pay $200 to come to a class like
Yeah,
this.
this course would normally cost you $9.95 to $14.95.
And they make
Your
a big issue.
bishop has arranged it to where you could get this for that price.
And they make
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, and it's still like it's expensive, $200.
Yeah. And well, it is expensive. Let's admit that. It still is expensive compared to what? Well, compared to the fact that, $200 for most of us is still $200. But show me your calendar and show me your checkbook, and I'll show you what's important to you.
Correct.
And $200 spread out over 4 months or 4 weeks is not bad for personal development. That's cheap. If you're getting good stuff. How many of you would say that this is good stuff?
Awesome.
See, this is new stuff. It's different. So let me address some of that, okay? First of all, I think that we have created this culture. So we created this monster. While we want to complain about it, and I'm not saying that Bishop did, he inherited it. I'm not saying that Benda did it, he inherited it. This has been happening for a long time. We have not valued education or training in the Church of God the way we should. We've almost made it a hurdle to where we saw education and training as secular and worldly and opposed to and even standing in opposition to the moving of the Spirit. Seriously, it was that much of a dichotomy. And in some of our cultures, more so than even in others. But we're having now to overcome that. That is hurting us bad right now. In a time of crises, and all the research is saying that right now you have to relearn new skills very, very fast, and you have to be able to absorb a lot of information to move forward in this day and time to be successful. And those who continue business as usual are going to be at greatest risk. Listen to me, over the next 5 years, if you're not learning, it's going to show big time. You're going to see churches closing. You're going to see pastors having to walk away because they're not able to adapt. Say adapt. There's not a question now. If you don't adapt and change in some way, you will become extinct. It's just going to happen. Your church will close. Someone else will be pastoring your church, or they'll have to sell that church so that they can start another ministry somewhere else that's going to work, because adapting is going to be... So we've created this monster. We've got... And listen, you got people like your bishop who's doing their best from their place of position and authority to offer things like you just said. The council here buys into that. They offer things, but the very people that ought to be drinking from this fountain don't show up. But before we complain, we created this monster. Number one, they don't know what they don't know. So when they hear a training, then they think about something that's been done in the past, and they think to themselves, well, I don't have time for that. When they don't know that, oh, this is not that. Here's what I find. When people actually do come to our leader labs, they have an aha moment, and they say, wow, this is really good. This is not what I thought it was. So I didn't know what I didn't know, but they got to come, right? So they don't come. We have got to do a better job moving forward of helping people realize how important training is. And we've got to do a much better job of making training interesting, even entertaining to a degree, but relevant and practical, so that people will realize that this is survival. The number one thing they say that will help people keep from getting eaten alive in the ministry today is training. And people are getting eaten alive. The ministry, it is so tough. So I stand with you. I agree with everything that you're saying. I will tell you that what a lot of people are doing now in churches and in states and so on, because there's only a certain amount of time that you can ask people from a pastor's standpoint. There's only a certain amount of days in a year. And I think you kind of almost have to sit down and do the math. How many days, Pastor, in a year can I honestly ask my people to come out and do something at the church or for the church that doesn't cause them to take away quality time with their family? Here's what James Dobson once said. He said, I fear the day when the church actually is being detrimental to the very institution that we were created to support, the family. And sometimes we have to ask, how many days can I, and then I think states have to ask that question. I think that we all have to ask that question, and what does that look like? And begin to seriously consider the time. So what happens is camp meetings, prayer conferences, events that we normally have that are big events become extremely important. Because now what I have to say is, how should I use that event? How should I use that time? And a lot of people are taking that, here's the way Jesus, let's use Jesus' words. New wine needs a new wine skin. So the new thing that God is bringing, whatever that is, new wine, wasn't just the moving of the Holy Spirit. See, we think of that in terms of Pentecostals as being the run, the jump, the shout, or the scream in church. And that's not, that might be part of it. It's only a small part of it. It is the new thing that God is doing. It's the thing that we have to do in this season to adapt to not only survive. See, Jesus doesn't want the church just to survive. He wants the church to thrive. Why? Let's take it to another level, ladies and gentlemen. The church is supposed to have on armor. Why? Because we're supposed to be warriors. That changed your perspective real quick. The church is, we as pastors are supposed to be preparing warriors. But we can't prepare warriors because we can't get our people off the milk. We can't even say, do things decently in order without the church blowing up in our face. Why? Because that's a baby's attitude. The baby screams and shouts when it can't get its way. When I was a child, I spake like a child, I thought like a child. But when I became a grown-up, adult, responsible person, I put away childish things.
Amen.
So we have to look at that event and say, okay, when I've got them here, what's the best use of that time? How can I, because then you're going to get them. So what I would do, and I don't know, Bishop, I would say, I would gather around a bunch of my people. And I'd say, how in the world, what would it take for us to get, how many pastors are in New York? 500
Ministers.
Ministers. Okay, how many actual local pastors?
170.
170. What would it take? Here's the greatest question that y'all have to grapple with. And you ask it. Are you on the council? Okay, you help him struggle with this. Because it's not, listen, it's not just his problem.
Correct.
It's our problem.
Our problem.
How many of you feel the frustration? Right? But New York could lead the whole Church of God if we got this thing right.
I'm telling you.
But we got 170 of them? What would it take to get 150 of them out to one event? I guess the greater question would be, has that ever happened in the history of creation? Has it ever happened? When we could ever get
Close. Close.
close?
Yeah.
So we have to say, all right, what did we do? What event is that?
It was just like a minister's meeting.
Okay, a minister's meeting. What do we have to do to get them out? And what do we have to do to get them to take this medicine? Because you got some medicine you want them to take.
Yeah.
You know that the medicine's going to cure them. Lord help, is this a great analogy or not? You know, some people won't take the medicine even if they know it's going to help them.
Make it a policy.
So those are ideas. We have to make it a policy. We have to make it mandatory. We have to, but boy, that's almost scary words too.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with the executive committee. They're not all that hip on making things mandatory either. You know? Because we're all vulnerable. We're all in a position where we all are a little bit leery to push out there and to make something. But I think there's a path forward. But we got to think differently. Jesus, God, is trying to do something different. He's trying to do something new. And if the church does not adapt, we're in a heap of trouble. Did you hear me? If the church doesn't adapt, we're in a heap of trouble. Now, it's not just one community, it's a lot of communities and subcultures within the Church of God where a lot of pastors have held on way too long. And that's what you were talking about. We need to divorce them from that marriage. I would say that we need to help them to see that they need to transition. It's like that older guy that's 42-year-old and he was... I don't want to hurt him. We don't want to hurt our pastors. Listen, because most of them grew up in and have ministered their entire life in a culture where that was the way we do things around here. You stay pastor as long as you can breathe and walk, and then you just have them wheel you in a wheelchair, and as long as you can stand up and talk, then you can be pastor. But that's almost the way we've done it. But that's not the way it should be. Here's the other thing. Many of our pastors have not ever prepared financially for that day. So when it comes down to that day and that time, the biggest priority they've got is survival. So we're putting them in a bad place. Now, we all know that the real ticket was you put yourself in a bad place. Why? You didn't plan. See where this goes back to? You see how quiet it is in here? Why? You know what? Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. But it's stuff we need to talk about. So we've got to find a way with consideration, with care, mercy, and grace to help people transition and to help people realize at some point, listen, here's the primary reason a lot of our sons and daughters and grandbabies are walking away from the Church of God is because we are hanging on, scratching the deck of the Titanic, holding on to our positions, and we don't give them an opportunity to have a place. So they'll go somewhere else to find a place. We got to walk away, give them the opportunity to fill that in, and still have an identity to where we don't feel like the whole world has walked away from us and we're alone and isolated. But boy, is that a hurdle. It's a hurdle. But it's going to start with training. We got to figure out a way. How do we get all the ministers together? And it don't have to be Fred Garman. I'm not saying that. I'm talking in general here. What is it that needs to, what's our path forward for New York, Church of God? What needs to be said? What needs to be done for ministers to get it? What's the most healthy content and substance and path forward to where we can set the stage and say, this is the way we do ministry around here. This is what a good job looks like. This is what we want to shoot for, and business as usual won't cut it anymore. And listen, it's not because it's Steve Smith. Steve Smith will only be here for a short period of time. And you've been blessed to have Steve and Karen Smith to be in New York City. That's a good place for somebody to put your hands together. Come on, that's right. When you can have a genuine Christian be your state administrative bishop, you're in good shape. And that's no insult on anybody else. You know what I'm saying? They're the real deal. And that's important. He loves you. He cares about you. Karen does too. Jonathan does too. Look at that. This young man sits down here. He's so in tune with what's going on. He's my buddy. By the way, he's going to be in the NBA one day, and he's getting me seats right behind the bench. It's going to happen. Whew. Y'all got me going. I'm going to keep going until they tell me to stop. Bishop Lee, should I keep going? I got questions to answer. Okay, I'll come. You tell me when. You want me to wrap it up? You tell me when. Good question.
Okay, so what would you suggest for churches who have few laborers who are struggling to find people in the department who would actually do the job? They have members, so you end up with workers who have been doing the same position for years that wants to give somebody else opportunity, wants to step away from it, so somebody else can come in. However, no one is there willing to fill the position. So you have workers doing multiple departments in a church that have members. So it's like you know, there's only those few. And so when you do convince, or you would say convince somebody to come on to the department, it's like they come on after a while, but it becomes more of a liability because they're not really committed. So they're not really there to do the job. So it becomes more of a pressure on the ones that are there. So what would be a suggestion? Because, you know, that's definitely, I think, something that the church needs help with.
All leadership is context sensitive, so I have to ask you, keep the mic just for a moment. I have to ask you a couple follow-up questions. Because if it's a church of 15 or 20, then there's not much you can do. Those people are going to have to serve in those few positions until help
What's the church over 100?
Okay, that's my next thing. When you have people who could serve, but they're not coming forth, what I find that typically it is a training problem. You haven't been training people. People realize that they're getting thrown into the deep end of the pool. They know. See, people never tell you this, but they know it's kind of an open-ended contract. That if they ever get your blood and you sign in blood, that you're there forever. So putting in a procedure like I'm talking about of drafting and saying just serve for just a year. What I had to do in a church of 600 or 700, we're ready?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. In a church of 600 or 700, I had to get extremely involved with the draft. The pastor did. The pastor and my staff. So I had 5 paid staff and myself, so there were 6 of us. We got extremely involved with the draft. That meant us spending July and August in coffees, in lunches, in meetings with people, and actually trying to influence them. Remember eyes, high eyes? You want to find some of your high eyes? Those are people who can influence people to your point of view. They're salespersons. You want those people to be out there. Now that's not manipulation, it's just smart. So you want to try and find the people that you think will be good and encourage them to serve 1 year. I would let my staff, we'd all sit around and talk about who we think fits these departments. Who's good with the young people? And I helped my youth pastor, who at that time was full-time, but even if they're part-time, I helped them. Who do you think has a good relationship with all the kids? And then I helped that youth pastor recruit those people, and my other team did. The nursery, who do we think's good in the nursery? And listen, don't just assume that it's a woman.
No.
Some men are great in the nursery. And you know what? They call me the baby whisperer in my family, because I can, and it's weird, but I can take a baby who's crying and within seconds the baby stops crying. My son-in-law says, "Where is Fred? Where is Poppy? Where is the baby whisperer when we need him?" And of course I'm out doing, but you see what I'm saying? You find people that are good, and then you go out and you try to recruit them. I found the best Sunday school teachers. I found the best assistants. I found the best Wednesday night directors. And here's what happened. If I encourage them right, if I train them, you've got to train them. This is where you get the pastor and others to bring in speakers. You don't just bring in your best friends to say something good. You bring in people that are strategic to what you need in that church. You go out and you try to find the best you can afford. And you bring them in, even if it's for 3 to 20 people. But those are your key. Listen, it's the Pareto principle. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. So you've got to find that 20% and pour into them. So most of the time, I hope I'm helping you, most of the time it's a cultural issue. People are not stepping forward because they've seen. Here's the great illustration. You've got a football team. It's a high school football team, and they are 1 touchdown away. It's getting into the 4th quarter, and they've got their best running back will not take the ball. He just won't take the ball. And they're on the 1 yard line and he's got to carry the ball. And 3 downs go by and he won't take the ball. So he calls timeout. The coach does. He calls him over and said, I told you to tell Floyd to carry that ball. And the quarterback said, Floyd said he don't want that ball. What's somebody got to do? You've got to find a way of helping Floyd take that ball. Right? Floyd probably don't want that ball. Why? He's seen what happens to people who carry that ball. They getting beat up. They getting hurt. They getting tackled. He don't want it. Well, Floyd can do the job. There's no doubt about it. That's why they want Floyd to take it. But Floyd has seen what's going on and don't want the ball. So you've got to encourage Floyd to take it, and you've got to create a culture of success in your departments and a culture of you only have this for a certain period of time, and please, if I can convince you to do this, you will be great at this. Man, you are fit for this. I'll help you for this. I'll give you the curriculum. I'll walk you through everything. You only have to prepare a certain amount of time. See what I'm saying? I'm using all this stuff to convince them. Somebody has to do that.
But what's that if that's still been done and it's still a struggle? Because the majority of what you've said has been done.
Yeah.
From the pastor. So it goes out individually with
You're the pastor?
No.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Okay.
But it's been done. So I'm saying, what suggestion would you have for that? Because these are things that I know that he has done and been working on for a long period of time. And it's just
I don't know that I have an answer for you. I think they've asked me to stop. I don't want to be rude. The pastor is the pastor of the house. I'm going to let him say something because he is who he is. and then I'm going to let you go eat. Because Brother Lee, you're saying it's time, right?
I'll be quick. I believe that problem is because of the environment. A new person not willing to step in. Probably the older folks, older people staying there, still controlling without giving a freedom.
Oh, that's important too.
Could be probably that atmosphere has to be changed. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
Or to avoid that, use the same scenario I said. Every leader has to train someone. So put up with 1 more year, get another person come aboard. That person do things under the leadership of current leader. So that will allow the new leader to take over after 6 months.
Good. Those are good suggestions. Let me close with this, and I'll say this to you. I'll ask you a question because it's so important that we help you with this. What role or position are you in?
I'm the youth director right now.
The what?
The youth director.
You are the youth director. So it's not your specific job to find all these positions. You just see that need in the church, right? Okay. Well, let me say this. If you're a youth, let's speak to you first and then to the bigger picture. This will be my last thing to say to you. I think, and here's what it is. The research says that collaboration is the new meta skill for the 21st century. Number 1 is you got to be learning or you won't survive. Number 2, you got to collaborate or you won't survive. So I would say I know that Brother Lee does this. He has a group of youth directors and youth pastors and youth workers that he meets with on a regular basis to fellowship, be accountable to, and to brainstorm. Am I right? Just to talk about ideas. I would find youth pastors. I would talk to Brother Lee. Maybe y'all have this here. But I would create an association of youth pastors in the New York area where they come out once a quarter, once a year, and you talk, especially during this time, because everything's upside down right now. COVID turned everything upside down. So I would say, get together, because they will have ideas in that group that somebody's going to have, that's going to be genius. It's just going to be like, wow, why did I think of that? Then what you also have to do is find people, whoever that person is, that's in charge of the draft, that's in charge of finding those volunteers. First of all, most churches don't have anybody. It just falls on the pastors lap to do this. And there's so many other things going on that the pastor don't have time to deal with that. So someone has to do it, or go to the pastor and ask, can we create a Christian education department? A Christian education board, which would be a board, a ministry board of all the people, and we want to be able to get together. Pastor, you appoint the chairperson of that every year, and it will rotate, because we don't want somebody to get it, but we rotate, and you come together on a quarterly basis, and you guys, everybody in the church collaborate, and then you encourage every person in every department to do just what I've told you. If you're a Christian education director, find other Christian education directors in the area and meet with them. If you're a ladies ministry president, find other ladies ministries. What are you doing? What are your themes? What are ideas? What are conferences? What are things going on? Share ideas with each other. Stop being silos and start collaborating. Because listen, there is a way forward. I just don't know what that is right now. That's why, did you hear me? Finally, I said, well, I don't know. But here's what I say. Together, because collaboration is so important, we can find out. But you're going to have to do it together. Somebody's got to take the initiative to create those groups. And I'll tell you this, I know that Brother Lee is really good at that. He's really good at relational, following through on ideas. You don't want to put too much on his plate, but I'll guarantee you he'll brainstorm with you about how to create those kind of groups in New York, and it would be very, very beneficial. Okay, Brother Lee, please come get this from me, or I will go from now till Jesus comes. I'm hungry, for heaven's sake.
Thank you, Dr. Gorman. I'm going to bless the lunch and allow us to go and eat. Again, I want to thank Pastor Ben and this church for their provision. Just a quick thing to say, what a lot of new churches are doing, they do have new converts class, which most of us do. After new converts class, they also offer leadership class. And they say this to the entire church family. If you're going to be a leader here, you need to take these classes. So there's Leader 101, Leader 102, Leader 103. So though you can't change the old culture, you can create a new culture. So people know you can't be a leader in this church unless you have done Leadership 101, 102, 103. So then from there, you have literally built people now who can be in leadership. So that's one way of kind of going forward. And then want to also bring this up that, the minutes required for every local church to do an annual business meeting. It's in the minutes. So that's a good place to revise and review and change leadership, right? The Church of God runs on a 2-year, now they're trying to go to a 4-year, tenure. But the minutes clearly state every 1 year there is a required business meeting. Now, in empowering people, here is what the minutes literally asks. I'm just from memory here, some of it. Are you a regular attender of the church? Do you support the pastor's vision? Do you tithe? So let me ask you a question. Why would you empower someone who doesn't do these things? Or why would you not read it to them before you actually put them in a position? Right? So a lot of it's in there, and we need to, take a look at these things. So say you have a current board, those people can literally help you to choose. Never ever make it wide open. You can say, if you're interested in becoming a leader, you have gone through the training, then take their names. Once you have those things, sit at your current board and come up with a percentage. So that day when you're actually doing the vote, you put those names that now it's you and your leader that have chosen these names from all that you receive. Choose 50 names and let them know, along with the leadership, current leadership, these are the names we have chosen and these are the ones we're voting from. So you start with your pastor's council and you vote from those names, and you get to treasurer, you make sure that person has some financial qualifications, or you want to, transition so the people we're putting up there know exactly how to deal with money. We step in, Brian can tell you about a chaotic position we stepped in, that a church for over 35 years had never ever done any of that. And we had to go there because of crisis. And those people, when they had an opportunity to choose their pastor's council and to choose their treasurer and their finance committee, my Lord, they were liberated. Now you just got to call them and they're ready. They are on fire. And so we have to bring the involvement, filter it through the proper lens, but you do have the Church of God minutes supporting you. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for all we have done so far. Bless the food to our bodies and our bodies to your service. In Jesus' name, amen. So food is downstairs.